you have not signed on to the guest book already, please make sure you do before you leave. And one thing I will request going forward is if you wouldn't mind printing your name. We find that we have an easier time reading people's names if they're printed rather than in script. So, we got a big old agenda today. Holy smokes, 9 items, so we better get going. The first item is a review of the minutes of the last meeting. Mr. Aceto and Mr. Schultz, did you have an opportunity to give them the once-over?
I did.
All right.
I thought they were professional and highly informative and succinct as usual.
Thank you very much.
We have the 13th and the 18th.
Oh, okay. Now, I was simply referring to our most recent meeting, which was on the 18th, but I would be remiss if I did not also include a review of the minutes of Tuesday, June 13th. I'm pretty sure everyone got a chance to review these and submit comments. This was the one, that was the meeting where we discussed the director's salary. So, first up is the minutes from Tuesday, July 18th. I move approval of those minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Thank you. Those minutes are approved 3-0. And that is because 2 people who were members at the time, Bo Carpenter and Linda Block, are not members of the board anymore, and they're not here today to vote. I did first Tuesday, July 18th.
So that was when y'all got sworn in, so that would be all 5 of you, right?
We got sworn
Yes,
in.
yes, I'm sorry. You're right. You're right. That was a meeting. That was a meeting.
I wouldn't have guessed that either, Jake.
Yeah. So, Ms. Braid, I apologize for not polling you on that question. All those in favor of approving the minutes of July 18th, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Okay, 5-0 this time. The next one's going to be 3-0, I hope. I would hate a number smaller than 3. Those minutes are the minutes of Tuesday, June 13th, 2023, again, where we discussed the executive director's salary. All those in favor of approving those minutes, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Okay, that's 3-0. And all of those minutes are approved, which means we can go on to the next agenda topic, which is the elections system, office updates, and then we'll go to the software upgrade.
Thank you, Chair. So we do have a full agenda today, and it's an exciting one. We have a bunch to talk about. But first things first, this is the first meeting of our new board. So they were sworn in by Judge Hill on July 18th, and that was a great swearing in. It was fantastic for all of you who attended. So we have 3 returning board members, Jake, Steve, and Glenn. And then we also want to welcome our 2 members, Sally Stein and Marianne Brain. And you've likely seen Marianne Brain here. She's a dedicated meeting attendee. And both Sally and Mary have been chief judges, so they bring some election experience that way too. We definitely appreciate the continued dedication from our returning members. You bring knowledge and experience that's really important to a board in elections. There's a lot to learn in elections. So thank you for coming back, and we're very happy to have new voices on our team as well. Next, photo IDs. The production of photo IDs goes live tomorrow. So we're ready. We're ready at our office. We have the system set up. The State Board of Elections will put out a press release tomorrow, and that's what makes it official. And then we will follow that by a Buncombe County press release as well. So we'll make sure that the word gets out on that.
And if you wouldn't mind telling us what can begin happening tomorrow then? Could people come in to this office?
Yes, thank you for the clarification. So people can come to any elections office across the state and acquire a voter ID. So it'll be a photo ID that's for voting. And that's the official ID that can be used if you don't have some other form of ID that qualifies.
Do you have to go to your home county?
You do have to go to your home county for those
Okay, thank you.
IDs.
And I know we're going to make them available at the office. Are there plans to make those IDs available anywhere else?
Yes, so we're looking for opportunities to go out into the community to make IDs available, and we're likely also going to make sure that they're available when our MAT teams, the multi-partisans assistance teams that go out to assisted living facilities, we're thinking that's a good opportunity there too.
Last question from me. How many of those machines do you have?
We have 3 of those machines currently.
Sorry.
We saved them from 2016. We're very efficient money users.
Good, thank you.
Fiscally responsible, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Those are great questions. Does any rest of the board have any questions? Next, party appointments are on schedule. We're doing really great. Both parties have submitted nominees, and Karen Ray, our recruiter, is working hard to go through all of those and to make placements for board recommendations of appointments, and that'll happen at our August 22nd meeting. So just want to let you know that we're on track with that. That's a big project.
I really appreciate the political parties stepping up and doing this. It's, I don't think we've ever seen the level of interest or effort that we're seeing today. I think it's a tribute to both those parties and their leadership. I appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. The collaboration has been fantastic. It really helps everybody. The next thing is candidate filing for Weaverville, Woodfin, and Woodfin Water and Sewer is complete. So if you want to see the full list of candidates for that election, that's coming up in November, you can see that on our website. And then as a reminder for the board, we have the required State Board of Elections conference on August 13th through 15th. And I'm going to present on the voting equipment demo requirements in a bit. But just, again, make sure that you're available for that demo on Monday evening at 5:30. And then the last thing before we move on is that tomorrow we will put out our public input for the early voting plan. So that's really exciting. So we kind of are going to launch 2 things tomorrow, the public input for early voting and then the photo ID production press release. And Negi will give you details on that when she presents the early voting plans in a bit. And that's all I have for you.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions? All right, moving right along. Right, now is the system software upgrade.
Yes, okay, so the election system software upgrade, I just presented the briefing to the commissioners, like just now, like at 3 o'clock, I just did it. So they've been briefed on this, and I will do the same for you and give you extra details and make sure that we're all up to speed on what we're doing here. The long and short of it is that the past 2 years are DS200s, which are high-speed scanners that we are mostly used internally. Well, they're only used internally. So they're for absentee meetings, and they are for recounts if we need that. They're very important machines. They're big workhorses for us.
The 950.
The 850s, yes. There are high-speed scanners. And they have not been, they've been used very heavily for 10 years, and they were starting to show that in the last few elections. And so we're seeking replacement for that, and the replacement for that machine is the DS950, logically. That's the upgrade. The problem with that is that machine had to be certified by the State Board of Elections before we could purchase it. So in January, we knew that the machine was likely to be certified this year, so we went ahead and requested it in the budget. So the board, the elections board came together, decided, yes, we want that machine, please request it from the commissioners. We requested it from the commissioners and it was approved. So the funding is secured for those machines and the upgrade. In July, just a few weeks ago, on the 20th of July, the State Board of Elections certified the equipment, so that's great. But the upgrade was classified as a new voting system. So that means we have to take the extra steps to get that approved by the commissioners as well, like we did for Express Vote. So I'll explain what those steps are next. And but let's talk about what the upgrade is first. So it enables the use of the digital, the high-speed scanner, the 950. And the 950 is the only equivalent replacement for the 850. So in order to be able to use it, we have to upgrade to ES 6300 is what it's called. EBS 6300. It actually doesn't have a lot of changes from what we do now. But the biggest one, which is very positive, is that we switch from Windows 7 to Windows 10. So that's good.
Just real quick, show of hands, who's still using Windows 7 at home? Yeah, okay. This is an ongoing issue with North Carolina elections. This will come up in the future. When you hear discussions about the governor's elections budget, this is what we're talking about. Anyway.
So that's the biggest difference. We still operate substantially the same. It does have more streamlined internal reporting, so election night will be just a little bit faster with our reporting. We also can scan ballots without manual pre-sort. So the board will know what this means, and people who have been in the audience during absentee meetings will do absentees in order, and we'll have to keep them in order by precinct so that Bria can scan them by precinct. We can put them in whatever order we want and scan them through those machines. Very, very good. I still recommend we keep them in order, but
Hey.
we can talk about that at an absentee meeting.
The meeting can go faster.
But-
We can sort later.
But that is a very good benefit. And then for recounts, we wouldn't have to pre-sort either. So that is great.
Would this be the last resort?
Oh gosh. Put that in the minutes. There are some expanded options for the DS200 and the Express Vote, and I'll tell you what those are in a second. Well, for the DS200, it is that there's bigger font on the results tapes, and anyone who's been a poll worker, yes, will like that. They'll be able to read the tapes more easily. For voters, largely, you're not going to see much of a change unless on Express Vote. So currently, on Express Vote, you see one contest at a time. There is the option to put more than one contest on the screen. I think we would have to think about each election and what each ballot looks like to see whether we'd want to do that option. On a very small ballot, it might be nice to see the whole ballot on the screen. So that's something that would make voting faster if we chose to do that. The other thing is that the DS200, that's the tabulator at the voting machines that prints out the tape with the bigger font on it, also will process faster. So that means the tapes will print faster, which, when we're under that pressure on election night to get those results in, will speed that up a little bit. So it's minor, but it does make a difference. Okay, so we talked about the 850s, why we need the 950s. That certification happened because that's a requirement. We secured funding through the Board of Commissioners, and now we have to take the steps that are needed to finish the approval process. So the first step of that is to witness a demonstration, and that will happen at the conference. So that's the time that I specified, the Monday at 5:30. And then we will have to formally recommend to the commissioners the upgrade and the machine. And I can do that at the commissioners' meeting on the 15th. And that's why I was briefing the commissioners today at their briefing. The numbered memo 2021-1 has a revision that outlines these steps too, so that can be referenced as well. It also makes it clear all the equipment that's under EBS 6300, so you can kind of see why there's a difference. We're currently operating under 5.2.4. So we'll do the demonstration. We will ask for the machine formally that we want and to seek approval for use for that from the commissioners. And when I briefed them today, they didn't have any questions, so I don't see any issue with that. And they understand, they've heard this before through the budget process, so it's not new. Then we will need to do a simulated election, which we'll do on the 16th. So that will happen, and then we submit to the state board that we've done all of these steps, and we can place the order. Are there any questions on this process?
I just have a couple. So the 950s have not been delivered yet. They have been delivered.
No, we don't have the 950s.
Okay.
We won't get those until we get formal approval.
Okay. And so, but you're anticipating doing the simulated election on Wednesday, August 16th?
Good question. So the vendor will supply everything we need for the simulated election on the 16th. Our equipment will have to go through acceptance testing. So that's something where a state board representative is at our office and we test every single machine that we get. So we have that acceptance testing in addition to the machine testing that we do every single election. So lots of testing will happen on the actual equipment that will be ours. So the simulated election will run through our election with our precincts and make sure that that all of the processes work properly. August 16th, so that's the day after the conference.
And
But
default.
it's not going to be our machine.
No, not the simulated election.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Convince me.
Convince you. So the
I'm just a little
simulated-
concerned. I mean, I understand the time crunch. In fact, I hope everybody appreciates the time crunch here because we want to be able to use this new equipment for elections that are right around the corner. And we have to follow this process step at a time. We're going to have a meeting in Concord at the Embassy Suites. Y'all come on down. And that's what we're going to do on Monday, August 14th at 5:30, because we have to do our deal with the machine before we can go to the commissioners. And there's all these steps we got to follow all the way through. And so I can understand why we might not have our equipment, but it gives me just a little bit of,
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you.
So there's two things. You can test at a simulated election or during an election, and we're actually going to do both. But the State Board of Elections only requires one, and it'll, if we do the simulation first, then we can purchase the equipment. It's kind of a catch-22 how the State Board has it actually, because even if you ran it through an election, it still wouldn't be your equipment. You would still be borrowing it from the vendor. But we will be able to do the simulated election with borrowed equipment and then bring in our purchased equipment and we'll run it in the in the municipal election. So we'll make sure that everything works with our equipment as well.
okay.
So we're going to go through the process twice. The simulated election is great because it will take our election, we'll basically be doing a mock election. I think it'll take about 4 hours is what we're thinking. And we will make sure that with the number of machines that we have and the types of machines that we have, because we use DS200s, Express Vote, and then we have the ElectionWare, that's the EBS 6300. So we'll run through all of those processes and make sure that they work.
Mr. Quinn,
Mr. Aceto?
two things. Thing one, meeting on the 14th. It's going to be out of the county. I presume we won't be available for virtual participation.
I believe the state board is trying to arrange that. Have they made any progress? 'Cause we are not the only county doing this.
So I did request a virtual option. I didn't get a warm feeling from that. But it doesn't mean that we couldn't try. I think it would be complicated. But I do feel like a virtual option would be best.
You know, we're going to explore that because push comes to shove, we can just do Facebook Live. And
Yeah, there's ways we can do it.
okay,
But
the public is going to have access to this without going down to Concord by hook or by crook. We'll figure it out. But hopefully, the state is going to come up with a solution that helps all the counties that are involved in this. And so,
Thank you. I think we have people who regularly participate virtually.
Mhm.
They're participating right now virtually. Thank you very much. Welcome to all. It seems that it's become a reasonable part of their expectations. We're not required to do it by the law, but there be dragons. If we just find a way to make that option available to those who expect it
yep.
and deserve it, and I'm very glad that we do this, and it seems to work well.
Yeah, transparency is a priority for this board.
Well, just even if they don't show up, they know they could.
Exactly.
I mean, that's enough.
Just, yeah, being out there
So anyway,
makes a
okay,
difference.
and
So
question
we're
two-
going to figure that out one way or another, but I return to my hope that the state board comes up with a solution for all, rather than every county having to do a one-off solution.
Thank you. I think
We'll get
that's
something.
the right page to be on. Okay, thing two. Thing two is, tell me a little more about what when we talk about a simulated election with borrowed equipment involving all precincts. What does that look like? Is somebody going and feeding ballots to each DS200 and so like staff walks in and every machine is actually operated, engaged, and processed? What is it? What is it? What is that? What physical steps are involved in a simulated election with borrowed equipment involving all precincts?
So we would do it at the warehouse so that people could come and observe. So that is a nice benefit of that too. But and I would like, Bria knows the most about the simulated election, so I'm hoping that she would be available to come down and talk about that. Like what it would actually look like.
Good. Yeah, I think we've piqued some curiosity in the room. So
Yeah.
let's get that subject matter expert in.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair, I have two questions too. Were you finished?
Yeah, Sally Stein.
First one is, how long do we anticipate it'll take to receive our own equipment after it's ordered?
So we are, if we can get through all this, the steps by the 16th, we should be able to get the equipment by September 13th, which should give us time to do acceptance testing and the logic and accuracy testing.
Good, so there is some time there. Second question is, what's the name of the vendor?
ES&S, Elections
Systems and support, systems and software.
Systems and software.
ES&S produces the entire suite of equipment that we use for managing elections here.
We can't hear you, Corinne.
Okay.
That's funny because it was just the other day, Corinne said, now make sure you all lean into the microphone.
But I think it's not the microphone here, right? You just can't hear me.
I can't hear you.
Loud and clear.
Is my mic on?
Yes.
Okay, so Bria is coming down. So
Oh,
she'll
wonderful.
talk
Thank
about
you.
how the simulated election works.
Okay.
Are there other questions?
So with the simulated election, it'll actually be simulation of an election that will be occurring.
I'm not sure. I think Bria needs to
Okay.
talk about exactly what data that will be used. Any other
Any
questions?
other questions about this? I don't have any. So, Bria will probably be down in a couple of minutes. All these other things take too long. Okay.
The electing the secretary for the board might not take.
Okay, we can do that. Item 4, we're going to come back and finish item 3, election system software upgrade. We will quickly move to item 4, election of a secretary for the Board of Elections. This is something we do at the beginning of the term, every 2 years. And I will now open the floor to nominations for secretary for the board.
Mr. Chairman,
Sally Stein.
I would like to nominate Glenn Schultz to be our secretary for the next 2 years.
Thank you. Do I hear any other nominations? Hearing none, nominations are closed. And under the circumstances, I move that Glenn Schultz be elected secretary by acclaim of this board. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Thank you, and congratulations, Mr. Schultz. Less than a minute.
And Bria
And
perfectly
Bria.
on time.
Bria Bailey,
I hate
right
it.
on cue. Thank you so much.
So this is a printout provided by the state for the standards for our simulated elections. Virtual, people need to hear.
And these standards are attached to that numbered memo also that I referenced. So if you look that up, they are there as well.
So this is just going to be for one precinct?
Yeah, at least one.
Yes, at least one, but I'm pretty sure we'll be doing way more than one.
And just for the information of the people who are kind enough to attend this meeting, what we are discussing is a document that's titled Standards for Simulated Election, adopted by the State Board of Elections on July 31st, 2020, amended March 28th, 2023. Just a two-pager. We don't normally, you wouldn't find this among the numbered memos except when it's attached to a numbered memo. But just FYI, what we're talking about here.
This will be our first time going through a simulated election. We haven't done this before. So I am still learning about it.
So we gotta do 9 precincts.
We'll round up.
And it looks like you all get to pick. And the administrative polls, what does that mean?
Administrative polls are our one-stop sites.
One stop equals early voting.
And absentee by mail. Transfer station, which is election day.
And provisional?
And provisional, yes.
One stop for 10 precincts. So we'd be looking at 3 one-stop sites. So that's 3 one-stops. So we're up to 13, up to 12. Then we get a hand die sample audit. And it says that the County Board of Elections members and staff may conduct the election, and if possible, shall include precinct officials. Public shall be invited and may observe.
This can be observed by anyone.
Maria, the second one says, if applicable to the voting system being tested, second sample election will be coded by style. Is that applicable in this case?
Yes.
Yeah, help me out with that one, because coded by precinct, coded by style. Well, within each precinct, we have different styles.
So we code by style. We rarely, if ever, code by precinct. So they will do a test by precinct and also by style, because that is how we code.
So
I'm sorry. go.
two different test elections?
Two different simulated elections in one,
Okay.
yes.
That's-
In one.
In one.
Oh, I see. So one event.
One event, two programmed elections that they will create for us.
They being,
Printelect, our vendor. Because they conduct a simulated election.
oh,
And to be clear, ES&S is the manufacturer, and Printelect is the distributor and
Yes.
customer liaison.
Yes,
It gets a little tricky.
yeah.
it does get tricky.
The
I still have
representative used to
trouble.
work for Buncombe County.
Correct. Now works for Printelect, not ES&S.
We never talked to ES&S, do we? We just talked to Printelect.
Actually, doesn't ES&S come in and do the demo? And then Printelect is there to collect the money or something?
Yeah.
But yeah, there will be Printelect representatives in Concord at the conference.
So for the simulated elections, Printelect conducts that, correct? And
Yes.
they somehow mark the ballots.
They will bring the ballots with them. They are pre-marked, they're printed marked. So they don't hand mark them. They come printed that way.
Okay. So they've got a test deck,
Yes.
is what it is. Their standard selection of ballots that they'll use to test this.
How do you
So they know
guys,
what the outcome's gonna be before they ever get started?
Yes, there's a script that they will follow.
how do you guys determine how to do the precincts? Are you,
For a simulated election?
mm-hmm, we're gonna
Um,
do 10 or whatever you're gonna round up, so how's that determined?
I'm not sure. I don't know if it is something, I don't know if it's something that we will choose
Mhm.
or if they will
They
choose.
choose, okay.
But I imagine that we have the choice.
Well, I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. We will do a simulated election before every election, correct? To test our
We
machines
do
and
a
draw-
logic and accuracy
I think
test.
he's talking about the mock election.
Yeah,
Yes.
my collection, okay. Yeah, man, oh man. How many different kinds of elections do we have? No, really. I mean, it's mock election, simulated election.
I do like this conversation because
Primary
it's
election,
showing-
general
Yes,
election,
it is.
second primary election.
It's showing all of the testing that we do. It's a lot.
We do keep busy. Okay.
So you test every kind of election that's possible. Is that what-
Every,
is that what-
before each election, we do a mock election. Every time.
And so for this year, with it being Weaverville, Woodfin Water Sewer, it would be a fairly narrow slice of Buncombe where we were doing a simulated election. But for the March 5th primary, when we have 80 precincts and however many early voting sites, and lots of candidates from all the different parties participating. I would expect a much larger portion of our precincts to be involved in that.
The mock election, we do all of that.
All eligible, yes.
Okay.
Okay, do we only do simulated elections when we're acquiring new equipment?
Correct.
Yes.
So
So this
for-
will only happen once.
Yeah.
So before the machine testing that the board does, the election services goes through a mock election for every election.
Yep, that's just standard for election. In any election, a mock election happens before.
Okay. Whew. Does anyone else have any questions? I have to admit that I am not 100% clear on this, but I plan to be by the time I get home from Concord, because we're going to be talking about this at our 5:30 meeting on Monday, August 14th. If you can't be in Concord, tune in online. I'm not sure what
We'll make it
vehicle
happen
we'll
somehow.
use, but we'll have something.
But essentially, it's, you'll view a demo,
Yep.
there'll be a simulated election, we'll run it in the Muni before full launch in the primary. And we have acceptance testing and logic and accuracy testing. So we should be very confident that these machines work.
And then we do
Properly.
post-election audits.
Yes.
Question, on this particular simulated election, it says all records, ballots, and related documents for the simulated election will be retained for 5 years after the testing. Is that true on all your simulated elections, or just this machine testing one?
Just machine testing simulated elections, yes. The mock election data just stays with the election and stays
Right.
on that retention schedule.
LNA testing is 5 years.
Oh. Thank you.
Now, which testing?
That's the mock election. So within the mock election is logic and accuracy testing.
Right.
And that we retain for 5 years.
What's the same standard?
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's good to know.
Ms. Bailey, thank you for enlightening this board.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any questions on the subject?
The only question I have is the same one that was mentioned, and that is who is going to choose the precincts? Do we tell ESNS or print elect what precincts we want to use, and then they print the ballots? Or do they print the ballots and tell us what precincts they're going to use?
We can get clarification on that and bring it back.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
And then, of
just
course,
Before you proceed, my request is that we get an answer to that, and please transmit that via email to the board members, because we're not going to meet again until we get down to Concord. And it'd be kind of nice to know the answer before we go on down.
Actually.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yes.
we do have a lot of meeting left.
And when we get into election season, we will start meeting at 5:30, so we can get that day's mail for the absentee ballots. But I love 3:30 meetings, because people are still in their offices, and hopefully someone at Print Elect or ESNS is available to help out with something like this. So we're going to get to the calendar in a little bit. 3:30 meetings are pretty good. All righty, moving right along. Oh, look at that. Present board calendar. There we are.
Hi, hello.
Hello, AK.
Okay, so everybody at their seat should have an updated board calendar. It's very similar to the one that y'all have already seen in email, with a few changes, like I took out all the dates from July and June because those have passed. So this calendar is what staff is recommending to y'all for the next, basically through January of 2025 is what we've laid out. As we have said before, most of that comes from a combination of what has to happen by law, and then also what we have from the past sort of realized what works best. I did want to point out that next to a lot of the items, you'll see little blue or some purple links. Those, if you have them on your computer, you can click and it'll open up the general statute that it's referencing, or you can take the number and look at it in your law book. So that's another way to sort of check and see all of the things and compare them.
That is great. Thank you.
Yeah, and I didn't realize I didn't mention that before, and then I was like, oh, that's important because that's helpful.
Holy smoke.
As we are talking about this, so we're doing it with the idea that you would end up voting on it. If you happen to love it, I guess you could do it today, but we do have time set aside at a later meeting to actually vote on it. But you could vote on just the muni, or you could vote on the muni primary in general. If you just voted on the muni, then we'd have to make sure to carve out time later to do the primary and the general. So by voting on it now, we recommend doing all of it at once because then you have that done. And if things need to change, you still have the flexibility to change it. But if nothing changes, then you don't have to worry about getting to that step in the future.
Okay. We're going to meet again in this room on Tuesday, August 22nd. And, I mean, that would be a perfectly fine time to have a vote to accept this.
It's time to look at it.
Exactly. I'm hoping that everyone will take this draft home and bump it against your own calendar. And if you see conflicts, just bring them on in, and we'll see what we can do to work around the conflicts. But thank you so much. I get a little nervous when I see a 6-page calendar.
Yes.
I think we're going to be a little busy. But
We will be a little busy.
But thank you for all the detail.
I have some more things to explain if you want to hear them.
Yeah, please. I'd love to hear them.
So I do want to note that you may notice that I've also starred some of the meetings. I did that next to the day of the week, so Tuesday. Most of them are Tuesdays. And the dates that I starred are the ones that you have to vote on because those are the ones that we notice in the newspaper. So we notice 30 days prior to the election, the absentee board schedule in the newspaper. So that's what those stars mean, is that we're noticing that. But it doesn't hurt to vote on the other ones as well and keep them there, but that's what that is. And sort of along the same line, you'll notice under the event, most of them are labeled either business meeting or absentee meeting. There are some others, but in general, business meetings, we have more flexibility to move around schedule-wise. And then the absentee meetings, a lot of that, like I said, with the notice, there's just a little less flexibility. And then also with the law, we have they have to start 5 Tuesdays before Election Day. And I do want to point out that some sharp eyes might notice that in the Muni, we only have 4 board meetings scheduled, absentee board meetings scheduled before, and that is because the 5th Tuesday is October 3rd, and you may also notice on the calendar that absentee ballots don't go out till October 6th. So there's no reason to have an absentee meeting to count ballots when nobody has received ballots to fill out. You won't have any to count. And there is a general statute that I can find for you, or that I have if you want, that says that you can cancel it because of no ballots.
And the highlighted,
What?
those that are highlighted?
So the ones that are highlighted are just dates of interest for the board, but they're not, attendance is not required. So, for example, the absentee ballots start going out in the mail. That October 6th is highlighted because that's good for you to know. People might ask you, and like that reference, like, oh, why would we have a meeting before ballots go out? And then there's things like the voter registration deadline, like things that we thought people might ask you or that might be helpful for you to know. So the early voting dates, those things as well. And sort of in the same vein, at the end after the 2025, all in peach right here, those are early voting training days. Once again, you don't have to go, but if you want to go, that's where that information is. And then the last page is if there was a second primary. Those are the dates that the absentee meetings would be if depending on if there was one, and then which one it fell under, the federal or no federal elections. Oh, another thing that I wanted to point out with the absentee meetings is for the Muni, we've set all of those times for 5:30, and for the primary and the general, we've set them for 3:30. That's what we're recommending. And the reason for the 3:30 ones for the primary and general is for those who've been here before, you know that election, those meetings get very long. And so by starting them earlier, then hopefully we still can get out of here at a reasonable time and also maybe not have to come in the next day. You will notice we also have a lot of if needed meetings in case that we have enough, we need to go multiple days.
That was so 2020.
Yeah.
We're not going to have as much absentee action this time. I hope. 39,000 ballots. Good grief.
Is there anything else? I think that was all of the things that does anybody have any questions or like that you know right now that you wonder why something is the way it is?
I think we have to take this home and go over it with the proverbial fine-tooth
I did
comb.
want to mention one thing that you also might notice as you go through. Under the business meetings for the voting location changes, that rule is that we have to notice voting location changes 45 days prior to the election. And you'll notice all of the dates that we put them on are more than 45 days, and that's so that I can let the newspaper know in enough time that they actually run in the newspaper 45 days prior. So that's that. I won't say discrepancy, but like that's why it's not the 45 days before.
Nuance.
Yeah, the nuance to it. That's a good word.
Thank you, AK.
Thank you.
And thank you for all the detail.
Yeah.
We can't say we weren't warned. Here it is. Next up on the agenda is, oh my goodness, we're to early voting plans. We're moving right along.
We are. This is definitely an exciting part of what we do. So, and we're doing a lot today. We're doing more than we usually do, actually, which we strive to continually do. So today we will be finalizing the municipal early voting plan, and that does not have a lot for the board to make decisions on. So you'll see that process. And then we'll go over the primary early voting plan, and we've really fleshed out what staff has recommended, but we will put this out for public input, so we'll get more data and we can refine that plan. And then we'll take a sneak peek at what we're thinking about for the general election as well. So we can kind of see the cycle in whole this time. Usually we do it one at a time, but we thought it was better to kind of present all three together so that we could see the logic behind our choices. And our expert for that is Ms. Fox.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir. Mr. Aceto.
just, so I'm on the right side of the turnip truck here. This, what Nagy is handing out now is the 163 to 27.6, the odd year election plan of implementation.
Correct.
Heads are nodding, so yes, that's what we're doing.
This is for the,
And that, looking at the Holy Red Book, there's not a whole lot that we do in that. As she says, we just simply are, make sure I'm looking in the right place here. Yeah, hang on. All right, it's E. It's 163 to 27.6 E. And it just says we have to reach unanimity. It doesn't really have any standards for it, right?
right, they want unanimous adoption by the board. And it has to, actually, we've got a lot of flexibility in the odd-numbered years. And the even-numbered years,
That's what I'm getting.
things
is
are
'cause-
nailed down in terms of,
Yeah, the even number of years, the plan of implementation has these specifications that we have to follow.
well,
I don't see that in here.
in this one, I think we've got the municipalities sitting in the driver's seat. This is their election, and I believe they tell election services what they want in terms of support for those elections. And then we provide that support.
If I understand it right, this doesn't even go back to the state board unless we are not unanimous. Then they have to step in. But if we're unanimous,
Right, then they say thanks, and we proceed. I'm sorry.
I'm
Ms. Fox.
sorry, please continue.
All right, well, thank you. So again, this is the municipal election for the town of Weaverville, Woodfin, and Woodfin Water and Sewer District, okay? Like Mr. Aceto mentioned, the municipalities are in the driver's seat, okay? They're the ones paying for this election. So they're the ones that ask how many sites they want and the hours. What we are required at the Board of Elections is to make sure that we open during normal business hours, Monday through Friday. That's my requirement for us to do. And then it is up to the municipalities to ask for additional sites, which of course would come out of their budgets. So both municipalities were reached out to. We got back information from them, and that is what this plan reflects, is what the municipalities agreed to do and want. So we are going to have our main election site here, early voting site here at our office. This will be the first time we're using this facility, so it'll be at the front conference room. We will be opening from Monday through Friday, starting on Thursday, October the 19th. It is. Uh-oh.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. All right, so we will have the early voting site here, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And then the additional sites, again, we have to have same hours. This include weekends. And then the last Saturday, we're required to open 8 to 3. So Weaverville chose to open an additional site, and they've offered the Weaverville Community Center to us. We will be there on Saturday, November the 4th, from 8 to 3. Woodfin has decided not to offer early voting sites, so we'll not be offering voting sites in Woodfin. Now, on election day, all those precincts in Woodfin and Weaverville and whoever has water districts will be open. So we will have those 10 precincts available for anybody that lives in either of those municipalities or the district to be able to vote on election day. But for early voting, we will only be offering here at our office Monday through Friday, starting on the 19th through the 4th of November. And then at Weaverville Community Center on that last Saturday from 8 to 3.
Ms. Fox, quick question.
Yes.
If I'm a Woodfin voter, can I go to that Weaverville
You
early
can
voting
take
site?
advantage of Weaverville. Absolutely. It is open for anyone. So even if you are in just the water district, sewer and water district, you can come here or you can wait and vote there in Weaverville Community Center. If you are a Woodfin resident and you're eligible for this election, you can also take advantage of the Weaverville Community Center. It is open for all of the eligible voters in those municipalities.
Thank you.
Okay, so that is what we are presenting to the board today. Again, this is what each municipality has chosen to do. And of course, we're meeting our requirement of having Monday through Friday here at our Board of Elections office. Do you all have any questions as far as what they're asking for? We have the site requirements, the proposed dates and times, and then a map of what kind of that looks like, those borders and all that. Oh, and I've got extras if y'all want to pass one
Mr.
over.
Aceto, did you have a question?
I did. I have a question for Negi.
Yes, sir.
Are we using the new equipment on this one?
Yes, we will. Now that we have express votes been approved by the commissioners in their June meeting, we will be introducing and using those for the first time during this election. So when anyone comes to vote here or at Weaverville Community Center, they will be using the express vote to mark their ballot and then put their actual ballot back into the DS200 tabulator. Like they
And
normally
it's
do.
going to generate the ballot style Without us
Correct.
having to
Every ballot
select it.
style, correct. Once you check in at the check-in with any of the workers, your ballot style at early voting will come up, it gets assigned, and then you will go take that and then mark your ballot like you normally would. But in the
Wonderful.
beginning of a pan, you're using your finger to make your selections.
Thank you.
Okay.
Colleagues, any questions or comments about the proposed early voting plan for Weaverville, Woodfin, and Woodfin?
One question, not exactly about the plan, the ballot, how is it marked? Because what we've seen in the past have been blank ballots that go into the express vote. So
Correct.
how does the express vote know which ballot type?
Oh, that's, well,
Right.
the header is,
Right, so when they check in, that worker will take their ballot and run it through, it'll go through a printer. The printer that's at the check-in stations will print a header that will have the barcode and underneath that the actual precinct number and ballot style that is assigned to that voter. They'll take that card, take it to the express vote. It will then recognize what ballot it needs to pull up, ballot style, and then all their options will come up for them to do their voting.
So it basically prints the ATV on
Yeah,
the top of the.
on the top of the ballot, it explains precinct number and their ballot style. Yep.
an ATV is an
Authorization to vote. Which everyone, they'll still have to sign the their authorization to vote, which is that sheet of paper with your address and information. You'll still sign that sheet. We keep that as a record of you voting that day, and then we will issue you your ballot, and then you will go to either express vote to make your selections. It prints out, and then you will take it to the tabulator, insert it, and get your sticker, and out the door you go.
essentially the same process, just
That's
less
right.
paper.
Correct.
Anyone else have any questions?
I guess for, Mr. Chair,
Ms. Stein?
for us that haven't been through an odd year election like this, are there any wisdom from my colleagues that have been through this about questions to ask?
Ooh. How come we only do them in Weaverville, Woodfin, and Woodfin Water and Sewer? Once upon a time, we had municipal elections in odd-numbered years in Asheville, Biltmore, Forest, Black Mountain, and Montreat. Those were changed in recent years. And as a result, we're doing what, 10, 11 precincts?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
In this municipal. If we were doing if all the municipal elections were in the odd-numbered year, we would be conducting essentially a far more robust test of our new equipment, new processes, and we would also be exposing a lot more of our election officials to the new equipment and new processes before 2024. But we're only going to do a handful of precincts, so. Anyway, I'm sorry, that was a soapbox thing. And you haven't heard it from me before, Sally, but most of the folks in the room have. I'm just kind of frustrated that we do not have more municipal elections in odd-numbered
Got
years.
it.
It's great for getting our election officials up to speed before the even-numbered year election.
Practice run.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
because there's a lot of changes all the time. We got big changes this time with photo ID. And for those who register to vote when they go to one-stop early voting, that will now entail provisional balloting in most cases. So there's just, there are a lot of changes. And for those people who are going to be election officials next winter, that's going to be a lot to digest real fast in a real busy election. Anyway, I'm sure that's not what you were asking about, Sally Stein.
Got more than I asked for.
I'm sorry, you'll find that that's not unusual.
For Mr. Quick.
Municipal elections. The cool thing about municipal elections is they're nonpartisan, and it's neighbors, and it's not parties. And I, for one, happen to like that model. So, yeah, historically, we haven't seen as much involvement from the political parties. I don't know if that will continue to be the case. What else is different about the municipals, folks? small scale.
Yeah, it's a very small scale, so it's actually 40 times as small as the primary will be. So big ramp up for the primary. Things that we look for, and when Negi talks about the early voting plan for the primary, she'll talk about things that we look for election to build the early voting plan. And so for a municipal, because there's only a few races, we might look at, is there competition in a certain race that might drive up participation, and we would let the municipalities know that, those kind of things, to help them make choices about the early voting plan. But as we said earlier, unlike the even-numbered elections, they pay for, and we are hosting their elections for them. So they have full control. Besides, right, the board is here to make sure that we're following that rule that when we hold a municipal election, we have early voting at our location. So that's got to be part of the plan. So the board makes sure that we have that in our plan, and then the municipalities can choose anything beyond that they would like to pay for. So that's the big difference between a muni and midterm and regular and general elections.
Participation rates are a fraction in municipal races compared to the odd numbered years versus even numbered years.
And in our case, they are nonpartisan and no primary.
Right. Yeah, that's important to note. Back when Asheville had its municipal elections in odd-numbered years, there was an October primary, but none of the other municipalities have those primaries. So we just go right to the general in November.
One more comment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Rosito.
This is a matter of taste, but because the statute refers to the plan for implementation, consider as we create headers for this, that we've called these early voting proposals forever, but the intent, I understand it right, is that this is the statutory plan for implementation, and it's the plan under 163-277.6E. So consider that when you create a header for the plan document, and when we vote, that we're voting on a plan for implementation.
Yeah, there it is. Thank you. I will note that on the front page of the handout that we received just now, you'll see the footnote at the bottom takes us right to the statute.
Yeah, we got it. I'm glad that's on there. That's good. I mean, that does it. That does it, but this is just so that if a Martian lands in the middle of our documents and starts looking for the plan for implementation.
That's right.
And they do that, I mean, you wouldn't know it, but I'm sure they do. We don't want them having to ask around.
No, we don't.
Because they're Martians.
Yeah, leave the Venusians out of it.
Exactly.
All right, colleagues. I appreciate the fact that this board does have a sense of humor. I would move that we approve the plan for implementation for the municipal elections in Weaverville, Woodfin Water and Sewer District for 2023, as presented by staff. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Thank you. We have an early voting plan for Weaverville and
you.
Woodfin.
So
Ms. Fox, thank you very much.
Thank you. So we will make sure we update our website with the new, now that it's been approved, and we'll get the word out also. We'll do a press release and all kinds of other stuff. But we'll get our website updated and get all that out there.
Good.
Okay.
I like the all kinds of other stuff.
All kinds of stuff. We've got all social media, all that stuff, all that wonderful stuff. Okay.
So next up on the agenda is another early voting plan, and this is the presentation of the 2024 primary early voting plan. The primary is scheduled for March 5th, and we'll begin early voting, I think, a couple days after Valentine's Day.
That is correct. In February. Wonderful time to do that here in the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Beautiful
so-
spring-like weather.
Yes, wonderful.
We'll have to update our foul weather plan, folks.
So this is the implementation proposal for the primary election in March. And the handouts that you are getting will be available to the public as well. I didn't make, these are quite thick. But we are doing public input for a month, so we're going to have plenty of time for folks to be able to review this plan and give us their thoughts and all of that. I gave you that, right? Okay, thank you. Okay, so those are just, it's an informational packet, kind of goes over some historical data, what we're proposing, site information, all of that, for you all to let it marinate, think about in preparation for future meetings that we'll have to discuss this, because this is not a one-time and we're done. This is one of many meetings that we will have. So today I would like to give the proposal that we are, present to you the proposal, the implementation plan proposal, so that you all can start thinking about it as we move forward in this process. In the next slide, here's a timeline that we are proposing. August 1st, obviously today, we are presenting this to you all, the board, and the public. We will make this plan in a website available on a web page called Public Input Page to the public, available tomorrow, August 2nd at 8 o'clock. So everyone will be able to review it. There's 6 questions survey that we want the public to give us back some information. Is this plan, you know, what do you think about it? How do you rate it? What are some positive? What are some negatives? We're even asking you to give us some suggestions. That we really found last year how beneficial it was for the public to give us some suggested sites for some places that we have a hard time finding those early voting sites. So I am hoping and begging again for assistance. Maybe you all know some real estate agents, property owners, get the word out to see how we can get some of these places that will make themselves available to us. Then we're going to close the public input online survey on the 8th. That's on a Friday at 5 o'clock. We'll collect that data and bring that back to a board meeting here on September the 12th for the board to review and see what suggestions were made, what sites might have been available, and if there's any changes that we need to make to the plan. And if the board is happy and woohoo, this is great, no changes are needed, then you all can vote on that day. If you say, needs a little bit more tweaks, that's okay. We can do that. So then we've got a last meeting on October 17th for you all to consider the final plan and hopefully vote unanimously to adopt a plan. Okay? So that's the plan.
Can you please tell us what the state's deadline is?
The state deadline is it's actually going to be in November, probably, okay. Maybe even early December.
Okay. So you've got some wiggle room in here.
We've got some wiggle room, absolutely. The sooner we can get this by you all approved and ready to go, it would allow us to just hit the ground running.
Sure, you can
Supplies,
plan. Yeah.
workers, you name it. We got to hit the ground running with all the preparation. So we got to start recruiting, how many people we need, the supplies, everything. So the earlier for us, the better, and we certainly appreciate that. Okay, so what are our current mandates? Because we do have certain mandates that we have to follow based on current statutes. The states, the early voting starts, the dates are already set in place. So we start on February 15th and we end on March 2nd. That's the standard period that we have for early voting, and that's what it'll be for the primary. We are required to open from 8 in the morning till 7:30 at night, Monday through Friday. That's mandated. We have no flexibility in that. The last Saturday, we're mandated to open from 8 to 3. And again, that's mandated. No wiggle room there. That's what we all have to do. We must have uniform hours at all the sites, meaning if you go to Weaverville, or you vote in Black Mountain, or you vote in downtown, you're going to get the same hours anywhere you go. And if one site opens, all sites must open. Okay? So uniformity across the board. And that's, I think it's a great thing. It makes things a lot simpler. It's predictable. So what does the board have to decide? What are your requirements? So you all have to decide on the number of sites that we open in Buncombe County. You all decide on the weekend hours that we open. And then it does have to be a unanimous decision in this instance. This is one of the few instances where the board has to pass the plan unanimously. Otherwise, it goes to the state board for them to decide our plan. So obviously we want to encourage a unanimous vote. But again, that will be up to y'all. So what do we do for considerations of our plan? What kind of information we as a staff do when we come up with the proposed dates, the proposed sites, and all of those things? We look at lots of data. We look at the number of sites that we've done, what kind of sites we've opened in the past. We look at the number of registered voters. Where are we at now? Where were we 4 years ago, etc. We look at suitability of the sites. So are they ADA compliant? Parking. Are they convenient to voters? Square footage. And of course, we do have to take our budget into consideration. And then lastly, something else we look at is the capacity of our staff and our workers. At the end of the day, it is humans running these sites. And so we do take their consideration, of those hours and things like that in order to make the recommendations. We have to follow current laws. We look at numbered memos that the state board has issued, if any. And then we do ask for public input. And so we will do that again for this plan. We will open it up tomorrow for public input for a month and hope that we get some great feedback for things that we can do better or places that we might be able to use moving forward. So these are the things that we look at every time in order to propose a plan to you. So in the next slide, here's what we're proposing. We're proposing 11 early voting sites. We're proposing opening Saturday, February 17th and February 24th. We're proposing opening Sunday, February 25th. And we're proposing weekend hours of 10 to 3 on both Saturday the 17th, Saturday the 24th, and that Sunday the 25th. Now, the reason why we're proposing these hours, we've done this in the past. It has worked very well, and what most importantly it allows us to do is to run one shift. Monday through Friday, we have to run 2 shifts because we're open for 11 and a half hours. Okay? I cannot expect someone to work 2.5 weeks, 11 and a half hours. So we break it up into 2 shifts. We've got a morning and we've got an afternoon, and that has worked very well for us here in Buncombe County. And we get a lot of workers that come back year after year because it is flexible, and I can work in the morning and have the rest of the afternoon. Or I can work be off in the morning, come in the afternoon and work. So it makes it very, very easy for them. And then on the weekend hours, the reason I'm suggesting 1 shift is because, again, it allows us to take turns. So it allows one captain, one site supervisor, and a group of workers to work that Saturday, and then a different one to work on Sunday. So they can take turns and have a day off in between those. So that is the reasoning behind the one shift, the 10 to 3. We also typically see the most turnout starting around 10, 11, 12. That's where we peak lunchtime. And then usually by 3 o'clock, it starts heading down. It starts. During the week, when we're open at 8, we don't see that much traffic. We start seeing more turnout around 10 o'clock, that 11, that 12 o'clock rush. And then we see things starts to peak down around 3, 4. And usually by 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, we are really just a few voters are coming in that late. And so that's the pattern that we have seen. And so that's why we're making these recommendations. Now let's look at our proposed sites. A lot of the sites that we're proposing are some of the ones we've used in the past, so it's consistency, if people are familiar with these, and some of these sites, but you'll see there is a few that we have to be determined. And so those are where I am hoping that the public input will give us some suggestions, and we are asking for that in the survey. But we've used Black Mountain before. The East Asheville Library is wonderful, very busy, great location. Inca Candler Library is also very popular. Fairview and Leicester, those communities are out there, and a lot of growth is happening in those communities. So they're very happy that we go out in there and serve those voters there. North Asheville, that's my challenge every election, where the North Asheville Library is just too small. The room is too small, the parking is non-existent. So that's where I'm hoping I can get some good input as for some locations, whether that's retail, churches, community, whatever. We'll consider anything and everything.
That old SunTrust branch is still open.
Still
It's got a
open.
big
The
for sale sign in front of it.
Steinmart is still vacant. If you
Rite
can-
Aid is still vacant.
Rite Aid is still vacant. If you can speak to John Spake for Spake Realty and he'll return your phone call, you have had a miracle. You've seen a miracle because it's standing there empty. Plenty of parking, never been able to secure that site. South Buncombe Library. That library is super busy, and I realize parking is very limited. However, they are expanding behind the library. There is some open area there. They're going to construct more parking. So the goal is to hopefully have that done either in the first of the year so that we can expand voter parking in that area. So I am looking forward to that. And then a South Buncombe location, again, is because that is a very high turnout. Again, we're trying to take some of that foot traffic away from the South Buncombe Library to hopefully alleviate some of that congestion there. So looking for that additional site. Weaverville Community Center, y'all, it's beautiful, plenty of parking, large, we love it. So we're so glad that town of Weaverville makes it available to us. And then Wesley Grant. Wesley Grant is happening, a reopening actually this Saturday. They've just expanded. They have a pool, a gymnasium, more classrooms. We are so very excited. So lots of more space there. And that would be our main Board of Election in lieu of site instead of here. We have, actually for the municipal, we are going to be here, but for the primary and the general, we can't have it here. We're going to need that space for overflow for us. So that's where we're going to stick all of our temporary workers for processing absentee, you name it, we've put people in there. And then also our warehouse. We've used our warehouse before, but we are going to need that space. That's going to be overflow again for processing and for sticking bodies in there to be able to work, because we are not going to fit in this building. We're not in the space we got. So that's going to be our overflow. So that is why you're not seeing that on here. And then the West Asheville Library, that's a very popular site as well. It gets used a lot, and so we like using that place as well. So those are the proposed 11 sites that we are proposing. Again, it is up to the board to decide the number we open and the location, so you all can change it, make suggestions, whatever. It's up to you all to make that final decision. Okay. The next slide is just a map, just showing you kind of like where everything's spread out. It's kind of hard to see, but in the handout that you all have, you just show it a little bit better, and when you look it up online, you'll be able to see it. But we've tried to, get out there geographically speaking. Obviously, Buncombe County is a large, spread out county, and so we've tried to target those high density places as best we can, and then of course getting out to those communities that may not be as large but still have a growing population, that we want to make it accessible to them, where the bus doesn't go out, and where they have to drive everywhere because there's no bus transportation. You're not
Maggie.
going to get a bus out in Fairview.
Maggie, sorry to interrupt. Mr. Chair, may I?
Mr.
Yes.
Cito, please.
Thank you. If you want to back up to that last slide, the previous slide, I am seeing that every one of these locations is a tax-supported facility.
Correct.
That, and the difference between the general election precincts and the early voting precincts is that they must be tax-supported facilities that the board has the right to demand the use of under law, or we have to go back to the state board for approval of, under certain conditions, if we're going to go for an alternative. But I'm seeing that we've checked that box on each of these. So, and that if we were to go to SunTrust, as logical as it might seem, we would have to go through that extra step of getting state board approval.
And that's what we had to do when we used Reynolds Village and Turtle Village.
And
Asheville Mall.
Asheville Mall.
yeah, and I can't imagine that they're going to turn that down.
No,
but
they
that's
don't.
but that's
as long
I
as
mean,
we've got a fair early
yeah,
voting
we've got
they're
certain
happy.
boxes we have to check. Okay,
Right.
and then we're supposed to make the demand 90 days prior to the election itself, which I assume we have done.
Yes, all of these facilities have been
The
contacted.
formal demand, and then
and
they've got
we've-
20 days to say no, you
No,
can't.
you can't, and they know they.
And they have to
can't.
provide parking, and
they
they have
know
to
they
provide parking, which I thought was kind of nice. So, okay,
Yeah.
good. And there are a
And
few.
these are all free. So none of these sites that I am proposing we're having to pay out of pocket, except the Lester Community Center. We do pay. It's a very minimal amount. And,
Is that a tax supported spot that we are entitled to demand?
they're not. They're a private.
Okay, so I'm hearing that we've got to get the State Board of Election to clear that one.
And they will as they
So we've got a plan to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's my responsibility. Once you all approve the sites, I have to submit this plan to the state board, and I have to also do that for the municipality, letting them know here are our sites and what the parameters are. So I am responsible for letting them know what sites we're using and whether they meet the requirements that they need.
And I'm seeing in the statute that there's 3 other check-the-box kind of things that have to be in our plan. I wouldn't expect them to be in it at this point because we're just talking about sites. But just since we're talking about that, they're in 163-27.6A, that the plan has to provide adequate security of the ballots and provision to avoid that's one thing. 2 is provision to avoid persons to vote who have already voted. And somehow this shows up in our plan. I don't know how, but that's supposed to be in there. And finally, a provision for the presence of political party observers. So I'm hoping that when we get to the plan for public comment, that those 3 things are in there simply because the law appears to require it.
Right.
So
Yeah, so it's our responsibility to, when we submit to the state board, that we specify these things have been met and how
for each site.
for each site. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Those are my
Thank you.
concerns.
Okay. So back to the plan. So again, 11 early voting sites is what we're proposing. We're proposing opening those 2 Saturdays. That one Sunday, weekend hours is 10 to 3, and then we are required to open the last Saturday, March 2nd, from 8 to 3. So that's a must. So that is our proposal. Do you all have any questions at this time? I do have here, this is the website that the public input page for our plan will be posted on. And again, it will go on the county's website, our website, and it will have the entire packet that the board was given today will be on there, plus the 6 questions that we're asking the public to let us know about. You know, what works, what doesn't, what are some suggestions for sites, how do you rate the plan, you know, those types of things. So I'm hoping some constructive criticism
There you
will
go.
be headed our way.
Constructive, yes, constructive.
Constructive.
Do you have any concerns about the President's Day holiday being an early voting day? Okay.
Not at all.
All right, thank you.
We will be open.
Any more questions? Anyone have any questions, observations? Well, observations are actually better after we get some stuff, but
I had
Ms.
lots
Brady.
of them, but she's covered them all.
Good. Well,
All right.
thank you.
Ms. Fox,
Good to
thank
hear.
you. What I like is just seeing the very familiar names of early voting places.
Yep.
I think voters appreciate consistency. Oh, it's there again. Easy to find. I've been there before. This is great. 2 early voting plans down, 1 to go. And Ms. Duncan's still here.
Do you need a vote on that, Mr. Chair?
No, sir, this was a preview, and now it'll be put out in public space, and we will hear from the general public, and we'll get
The
a
plan is to-
summary and analysis of the public's comments at a future meeting and proceed from there.
We'll be back in September to look at the plan again for y'all to,
In September.
yep, so,
That's an old song, sorry.
yep,
Most of y'all don't know it.
so, to be continued.
Yes, okay, next up is the sneak preview of the early voting plan for the 2024 general election.
Okay, and this is a very preview, nothing set in stone, none of that. I don't have dates, I don't, none of that. What I'd like to do is, once again, is give you some of the sites that we're proposing, and you'll see again, most of the same sites that you saw for the primary are being used. We are making a few additions. Here's your copy, okay? And this is by no means a final plan. Again, this is just a preview of what might be coming down the pipeline here, but okay. So for the general election, which is the period is October 17th through November 2nd. We are proposing at that time, or we will, 14 sites versus 11. So we've bumped it up. And again, you'll see that some of the same sites that we are using in this primary, we'll use them again. Some of the new additions that we are adding, and we're adding this because we typically use these during a general election. These places like to host us and make us and welcome us. So we are proposing Bee Tree Fire Department in Swannanoa. So that'll give us a good in between the East Asheville Library and Black Mountain, a little halfway point there. We're also going to propose a downtown Asheville location, a more centralized location for us. We're also proposing UNC Asheville. UNC Asheville has hosted us in every election presidential, and so we are going to try to do that again. And I believe the rest are essentially what we've used. So your Black Mountain, your East Asheville Library, Inca Library, Fairview, Lester, and then my trouble sites, North Asheville, a second South Buncombe library location.
Yeah.
But the rest is all the same. During the general election, we have to follow the same mandates. We have to open 8 to 7:30, Monday through Friday. That's not an option. That's our requirement. The board will once again get to choose the number of sites and the weekend hours. So that will be up to the board to decide. If we open one site, we have to open all of them. Uniform hours across the board. And then on the back is just the map just showing you how everything's kind of sprinkled around. Okay, so I don't have data and all that, but that all will come. Our plan is to present this to you again, an actual formal implementation plan next summer, and then have public input again, like we've done. Gather that up, and then let you all evaluate all that, and then vote at a future board meeting.
Thank you. I think it's
Just a
really,
little
really
sampling.
valuable to the board and for the community to see what staff is considering for the general election in 2024. A lot of people are interested, so thank you for tackling this so
This is a
early.
draft, nothing set in stone.
Yeah.
I
No,
just,
that's all good. That's all
Mr.
good.
Chairman, I just had
Yes,
one
sir,
question.
Mr. Schultz.
Is the board able to access the public comments as they come in?
You do not.
Okay.
You do not. It is run through the county's PR department, and they have given me access, and I think that's about it. So I will be checking on a weekly basis and pulling that data off, So then I can present that to you all.
Alrighty.
But you all can certainly go to the page and obviously view what the public is viewing, if you'd like.
And we're posting this on our website.
I was not planning on posting that because it is just a preview, nothing really set in stone, but I
got a photocopier. I think it is, you've done a lot of work on this. I think it's valuable, and I think it's worth sharing with the broader community.
Okay.
And, okay, help me think out loud, y'all. I know some folks would be dying to comment on the thing, and we're not ready to get their
Right.
comments.
I'm not there yet, yes.
I
Yeah.
understand the
Yeah.
reluctance to put it out there. It's just that you've got this really, I think, worthwhile product. And,
I have a comment.
yes, Ms. Brain.
I think it might be
Help me.
premature because then you're going to confuse people with what election they're dealing with.
Oh, thank you. Boy,
I
are
would
you
ag-
right.
I would agree with her on
Amen.
that. I think it's going to confuse the waters.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, certainly.
Most of y'all are accustomed to me thinking out loud on this stuff.
Certainly,
Very
though,
good.
the idea of,
Shelley.
of our community knowing that we're doing that much pre-planning is valuable. I don't know if there's a way to have some general statement on the website about that, the staff and board are actively working on developing those plans, something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right, and we can use the preview of the primary early voting plan as that vehicle. Hey, we're already getting ready for next winter, and for what it's worth, we're working on next fall too, but, 24. But we'll show you these right now. I thank you so much. That's a very sound observation, because it's very easy to confuse folks with all the different moving parts. I mean, we're just talking about 3 different early voting plans.
And we're already confused.
Yeah, yeah. So it's, thank you, Mary Ann. Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments, anything? Ms. Fox, thank you for the
All right.
third
Yeah,
time
thank you.
for your great work on
Thank you.
early voting planning. The board appreciates it a great deal, and I know the community does as well. You have really moved this process, you've advanced this process tremendously over the past few years, and as a fan of early voting, I appreciate it immensely. Okay, boy oh boy, a lot of stuff here, all in 1 hour and 34 minutes.
Chair, I do have an update on the simulated election, if you would like.
The hits just keep on coming.
Okay, so I have the answer to your question and also a clarification that I think will be important. So the test of precincts and the number of precincts is selected through an algorithm that the state board provides to Printellect, and Printellect uses that to select a number of precincts.
The number or the precincts?
The number.
Okay.
Which leads us to the next clarification, and this is from Bria speaking with the Printellect rep. And it is, I don't think, clear in the standards, but we are testing that all of the equipment types that we're that we have chosen are work together, not that it's our actual equipment.
Okay.
And it's not tested on our precincts. It's generic in every way. So it'll be a generic election that's simulating the types of equipment that we're using and trying to simulate the size. That's why the number of precincts matter. But it won't be our data.
Good.
So it's a high-level test of the suite.
Yep, let's
Of the
prove
suite of
that this
equipment
will
that all.
work, yes. And then another point I just wanted to make too is there's advantages, of course, to having the State Board of Elections certify equipment. It's fantastic. It goes through extensive process for certification, which means that it's slow. That's the other side of it. But another point of comfort is that this system, the EVS 6300, is not brand new. It's used in other states too, the same system. So we're not testing of something that's brand new.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Cito.
Okay, I'm looking at the standards, the numbered memo standards. County board shall use equipment and coding for 10% of all county precincts, or 5 precincts, whichever is greater. Use equipment coding for the number of actual county precincts. So, I'm wanting to reconcile the difference between this simulated and using the specific number of county precincts. So what, again, are we doing? Are they, I understand they want to make sure that this equipment will talk to each other. I get that. The numbered memo is not the law. It's a memo. But we certainly like to follow it. In terms of what the state board is going to allow, am I hearing that this algorithm generated hypothetical election, that it doesn't necessarily involve the list of Buncombe County voters? It's a complete hypothetical. It just takes the equipment.
And then simulates the size that is similar to our
Okay,
county.
so it's really about generating the same number of ballots and not about generating a simulation of ballots coming from a particular precinct in Buncombe County that has certain people registered to vote. Okay, well, that's clear enough. And although I'm kind of wondering, what is staff going to be doing on the 16th when they do this? I mean, what are they actually going to sit down and stand in front of a DS200 and do? We don't know this, or?
Yeah, so I am uncertain exactly what the simulated election looks like physically. But all of the steps will happen so that data is generated to run through to the results completion.
I'm getting that the audience for this is the state board.
Yes.
That this isn't about our expectations of the equipment or expectations that we should have. So I think I want to make sure that we're clear on that we're not missing out on something by this complete simulation. And I think Jake wants to say something about that, and I want to hear what Jake has to say about it.
Well, I think we're going to find out exactly what this is once we're all in Concord together, and we've got ES&S, and we've got Print-Elect, and we can give them the third degree. I plan to. I think this has been an incredibly valuable discussion in terms of preparing us for that demonstration and an effective Q&A.
Yeah, I think I want to know what should bother me.
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing readily apparent.
Somebody stick a pin in my.
And we'll also be able to tell them that we've got folks watching at home, and they're interested in knowing the answers to these questions that we're asking as well. So, I was thinking that this 5:30 meeting on the 14th was going to be a quiet little perfunctory exercise. Yeah, I'll do happy hour after that, not before. No, this is going to be some serious stuff. And then we're all going to learn about this process, and we get to come back to the community and answer every question anybody might have about it. Mm-hmm. This is good. Thank you. Ms. Duncan.
So two things, although I think I forgot the first one. I really liked that clarification. So there's two things that we're doing. The commissioners, of course, need to approve the budget, so that's done. They also need to approve use, and their requirements for approving use are that we have looked at the demonstration and that the system is certified. So those are those requirements. These are requirements that the state board wants from us. Yeah. So what you're saying is true. The state board wants the counties to prove that this system will work in their county.
Mm-hmm. Did you get any sense from talking to the commissioners? Do they have any particular concerns up front, or are they just Have they given us the reins on this?
Yeah, they definitely trust our opinion. They also have been informed of all of the steps, so they know the long process. They've been hearing about this since January through the budget process of the equipment. And then Express Vote, they also went through these steps. So they understand how much goes into getting a voting system into a county. And I remembered the second one, and it's gone again.
So you said, and I may have missed this earlier, Kareem, but the DS-950s have not been certified yet?
They have. They just got certified on July 20th.
Okay.
That's why we had to wait so long. Otherwise, we would have moved it along with the Express Vote purchase.
Anyone else have any questions, observations? Last item on the agenda is next meeting date. Next meeting is Monday, August 14th, 5:30 p.m. at the Embassy Suites in Concord, North Carolina. We will be posting information on how to access it online. And if anybody wants to come on down, it's in the shadow of the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Great. Unfortunately, there's not a race in Charlotte again until October. I looked it up. I root for number 8.
We could go out there and run around.
It's a heck of a facility. It's huge. They actually have a drag strip there too. You know, if you really want those 250-mile-an-hour jets on 4 wheels.
Chair, I remembered.
All right. I knew if I just babbled long enough.
Don't make me forget. The state will also be at the demonstration, so you can grill not just the vendor, but the state at the same time, so we can understand, the logic behind why each step is put together.
All right. Even better. The Oracle. Thank you. Anyone else have anything to come before the board? Question?
I would like to make a comment and a request to the board.
Okay, if you could please identify yourself, and do we have microphones for the audience so the good people at home can hear what folks are asking or observing?
Just hold that. Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I'm Kathy Walsh. I'm a resident here of Asheville, and I think everyone at the board, except maybe Ms. Stein, has seen me here since last July at every meeting. I wanted to remind you of something you probably already are aware of, and that the election boards of North Carolina have sent a letter to the North Carolina General Assembly, and they're representing 32 of their board members, an equal number of Republican and Democratic members, raising grave concerns about House Bill 772 and Senate Bill 749's disruptive impact on the administration of elections statewide. Swain County Board of Elections has also written to the North Carolina General Assembly, urging legislators to, quote, reconsider certain provisions of this legislation. Some of the current proposals, if implemented, may have unintended consequences that could harm rather than protect the integrity of our elections, unquote. One instance that both groups mention is that House Bill 772 will allow up to 12 partisan observers to, quote, move freely around the voting enclosure at any time, and audio or video record voter intake of paperwork, ballot machines, and conversations with poll workers without including what people's vote is, and that they would take images of voters as well. Such license would be disruptive, and it's impossible to supervise and increase rather than reduce voters' concerns about secure and secret balloting. In addition to these issues, both entities raise grave concern that State Bill 749 would have the staff director be hired by county commissioners, whose election the staff must administer. Now, finally, it concerns me greatly that these proposed legislations will increase the burden on our staff when the number of changes and the uncertainty that these bills would bring is great. So I'm asking this board to join with Swain County and also the Election Board Association regarding these concerns, and that this board may have concerns of their own, and that the negative impact that these would likely have on elections be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your interest and thank you for your comments. Does anyone else have any questions, comments? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned at 5:17 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I appreciate it. And again, if you didn't sign the attendance record, I hope you'll do so before you leave. I mean, I said sign, but I meant print.